Fellow heroes and Force users of all ages, hello there, and welcome back to Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. I'm Daniel Dawson, and I'm joined here by my friend Dino Nicandros.
Hello.
And Alyssa Simmons is on sabbatical. She's gone. She's gone. We miss her. She'll be back soon, don't you worry. Today, we are discussing Lesbians in Space. And by that, I mean we are discussing the brand new Disney Plus Star Wars series, Acolyte, created by Leslie Headland, and by God, we're Star Wars fans.
I don't know who you are or where you came from.
I am Iron.
I thought they smelled bad. On the outside.
Smells like a new car in here.
Inside the Tauntaun, this is our opening song. Alyssa, Daniel, Dino, talking nerd stuff, come along. Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.
Well, I think you summed up the show in its entirety.
Lesbians in Space.
So Veronica and I have been watching this show together.
Oh,
and
cool.
We watched episode 3 last night.
Yes.
And I told her you and I would be the only ones recording the episode today that would be also covering episode 3. And she's like, I really feel like Alyssa should be on this episode. I'm not sure it's...
I know. I was thinking this is the one thing that she could really help us.
Maybe she should weigh in. But we'll give it a go.
We'll give it a go. I mean, first of all, happy Pride, everybody. And this is what a great show to start Pride with, I think. Well, I guess you want to start out with our general thoughts about the show, because we've now seen 3 episodes, which is almost because we're only getting 8 episodes. Is that right?
I think it's 8.
Yeah. So we're almost halfway.
I actually think grouping these 3 together turned out it was accidental on our part, because as always things come up and we've had to push these episodes, but grouping these 3 together I think is a happy accident.
Yeah, totally. I am kind of I'm going to ask you certain questions about what your thoughts were before the 3rd episode, because I think some of my thoughts may have shifted once we got into the 3rd episode. I was like, that, because I guess if I'm going to start general thoughts, generally I like it. And I'm enjoying it, and I'm along for the ride and can't wait to see how it turns out. I'm not ready to give it my full review yet, obviously, because it's not done yet. If I had any type of complaint, it's not even a complaint, it's just it's just maybe a surprise that it feels like they're revealing things at a very quick pace, which I think they probably feel it necessary because they're only have 8 episodes, and I'm not sure if they're planning on doing more than 1 season, but
right. I believe they are.
They are.
I believe it got greenlit for season 2 already.
Great. But yeah, I like the aesthetic. I think it for the most part looks fairly expensive. I mean, comparatively speaking to some of the other Star Wars shows we've been getting so far, they've spent some dollars.
Yes.
And there's some very capable actors on this show. Generally. General. What about you, Dino?
So even going back to my thoughts before it premiered, I was super interested to explore this time period, which has not been explored yet in live action format, or really
what was your
animated
level of
either.
Excitement? Were you really effing jazzed, or just kind of we'll see what it's like?
I think I was more curious than anything.
Okay.
And oddly enough, I think I'm still in that mindset. I'm still curious.
You haven't been fully gripped yet, but
if I were to rate my buy-in right now, I think I'd put it at a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
The things that really work for me are the environment.
Uh-huh.
I love how they've given us a prequel aesthetic, but
Yeah.
and that goes to sets, costumes, music. Even Michael Abels is the composer. I'd never heard of him, but he's done a great job at capturing the John Williams prequel feeling musically.
Why do I feel like I do know that name? I'm gonna look him up.
What I think what I enjoy the most so far is the exploration of the Jedi and getting to see them at their prime, and really how I don't know how different they are in their understandings of the Force, and we get little windows into this in the prequels. I think Qui-Gon is the first Jedi we meet in live action Star Wars that kind of helps the audience question Jedi dogma, and
it has like a secondary opinion that isn't
right.
the Sith.
Right.
It doesn't feel so absolute.
And I like seeing how the Jedi function on different planets, and how you have these minor temples where they dress differently, and they kind of remind me of Jesuits, like Jesuit monks in a way.
Oh, sure.
In far-flung regions. And it makes it really easy to approach the series, having such vibrant and diverse locales and characters. And...
By the way, Michael Abels, known for Us, Get Out, Detroit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and, I didn't know that.
Yeah, very cool. Which, if you haven't seen those films, very good. And
yes,
he's very good at like making music that builds tension.
Well, I was going to say that then it is a supremely good choice, considering the tone of this show.
Makes you
what
feel
else?
Uncomfortable.
What else generally do I like?
I think to build on like your idea about the Jedi and their dogma, but like we're kind of seeing it from a different point of view.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of refreshing in that way. Is that like it feels, like we're not seeing it from the eyes of the Sith, where it feels so absolute. It's just like there's like it's like that Jedi thing doesn't feel as clean cut as I thought it was.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing.
Let's touch more on that when we get into episode 3. Because that's pretty much the conversation around last night's episode, and we're recording this on a Wednesday, the day after the premiere of episode 3, and in the lead up to it, and part of this was a troll job, but part of it was just speculation that episode 3 was going to be very, very divisive. Like the from a reception
it was
standpoint.
known that it was going to be divisive, or that when it came out, we're like,
that's why I say it was partially a troll job, and that there was an anticipation that whatever was coming down the pipe was going to ruin Star Wars, and
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, like anything that's come out ever in Star Wars has ruined Star Wars, according to certain Star Wars
certainly anything
fans.
After
I do that with quotation marks.
Yeah, anything after 2015, from 2015 onward, has ruined Star Wars in some way. So
anything with girls in it.
And my favorite is the gymnastics of defending Rebels and the end of Clone Wars and Rogue One. I was like, well, all of that came out, after 2015. So
yes,
it's either all garbage or it's not.
Right.
Anyway, what else do I generally like about it? So the depictions of the Jedi. I love the you brought up the tension in the music, but I love the tension it's building as a murder mystery from seemingly now different perspectives and different views. A very Rashomon, to go back to Japanese film, a very Rashomon approach, which I think is going to really pay off down the road.
For sure.
If anything, I think it frustrated people last night. Some things that had me scratching my head a little bit. the abrupt endings.
Oh,
At least in the first 2 episodes, where they chose to cut to black, cut to credits. I was like,
what?
that it feels like we're missing a note in the chord, or
Yeah,
we're not allowing the measure to resolve.
And I kind of wonder if they're sort of following, in the success story that was, Help Me Out, the show that everybody loves, Star
Everybody
Wars.
loves Raymond.
Yeah, the Star Wars story. Everybody loves Raymond. Damn it! Help me out. It's and
the one that. Oh yeah.
And Endor. And the way that like those episodes very much like, at least not all of them, but like it felt like they were sort of in chunks of 3 episodes.
Well, they were designed that way.
Yeah, and like the transition from episode 1 to 2 was like it just felt like they chopped it, and it was just like oh god, it ended, and like what the hell?
It did, but it felt like, and I'd have to go back and watch to specifically. I don't know, feel the rhythm of it again, but
yeah,
I do feel like those built to a crescendo, and then particularly episode 1, where May is approaching, what do we call this person? The Sith Master? Whatever they are.
Yeah.
And he's giving that whole speech.
Which was a cool speech, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't know, just where it cut, I was just like,
kills the dream.
Kills the dream. Boom. I'm like,
yeah, sure. Yeah, it felt like there was something else, maybe.
Yeah,
or they.
That's a minor thing.
Actually, yeah, I do wonder if that was was an actual edit, or if they really wanted that to end there, originally.
But that's a minor thing.
If you're gonna go on things like that, well, I don't know. This is not as general of a thought, though. This is gonna be more of a detailed thing. But
let's get into it. What is it?
What is it? I think if we're gonna, because I want to sort of like start with my complaints. I don't want to like sit here and like complain like the whole time. Because I enjoyed it, and I'm very much along for the ride. But I think another thing that kind of it didn't like throw me completely off board, but the like in episode 3, the very, very, it felt abrupt, that, and just made her look like a completely crazy child. May just deciding, well, then I'm going to kill my sister. Like that moment felt like just I didn't quite get the motivation there. I was like, well, it didn't click for me completely.
So I guess we're starting with episode 3. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
but it's the one everyone's gonna inevitably want to talk about, and
because it is very, like you said, a lot of people are talking about it right now.
There are several things in this episode, including that I think my guess is going to be much clearer as time goes on. I think we were led down several paths and then given no explanation.
Sure.
I think that's one such example.
Sure.
And my guess right now. Okay, so we have.
How did you feel about that moment? I mean, like
it was odd. It was. Okay. It. I mean, it was. They were kind of building up to it. She was like, you can't leave. I mean, they were giving her the.
Yeah, and she was kind of like they were making choices to like they were like making choices to show her being like super aggressive like towards her sister, like pushing her all the time. And
well, so you have Mother Anastasia, and then
Anastasia,
who is played by Jodie Turner-Smith, and
she killed it.
I actually think that is the performance of the show thus far.
Yeah, she totally killed it. Like her moment with Osha, like when Osha like makes the final decision to like join the Jedi. And she like hugs her, and it's like I actually got teary-eyed. I was like,
that was a beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Mother Anastasia, and then you have Mother Coral.
Coral,
played by Margarita, and I apologize if I'm butchering this. Margarita Leviva, I think is how you say it.
Did a better job than I would have. So
she plays Mother Coral.
Yes, who is.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think Mother Coral is the instigator of everything that happened. In the Citadel.
Sure.
I say that because her body was not among the dead witches we see. She takes on a much more hardline attitude in the training and guardianship of the girls than Anastasia does.
That's super fair. But
and I'm wondering,
she's just like, let's F these Jedi up.
Let's
get them out of here.
And right. And think back. So before that moment we were just talking about.
No, I didn't think about that. But also I just assumed that she was dead.
No, her body. I mean, we don't see her body.
I guess honestly too, that's another kind of convenient like writing complaint that I have, is that like the Jedi were just so convinced. They're like, we gotta get out of here right now. No, everybody's dead. I made sure of it.
But they didn't show us things though. That's what
right.
We were not given the full picture of what happened in there.
Yeah, there was like big
this
jump.
is the Rashomon moment I'm talking about. Like something went
this
down
moment again from another person's point of view. Maybe,
but before the moment you and I were talking about, with Anastasia and Osha, Coral takes May. Anastasia says, "Take Coral," or Anastasia tells May. Coral, "Take May for a walk." What did they talk about on said walk? I wonder.
That very interesting. Very interesting.
And then to have the thing escalate as quickly as it did, she sets a little fire, and then all of a sudden the entire complex has exploded.
All of a sudden to murder.
And then we see the Jedi scurrying away, and they grab Osha and they get the hell out of Dodge. We did not see the whole story.
Well, gosh, do you think that? But I mean, assumedly though, the backfiring of this plan and having almost everybody die, was that a mistake, or did you think that she potentially intended to leave no survivors? She's like, well, if I can't have then everybody's gonna go down.
I wonder if she's trying to frame the Jedi as well.
Oh, how interesting.
But whatever happens in there, it's bad enough that
this
they
is
all
the way
harbor
to bring down the Jedi, to show how
quite
shitty
possibly
they are.
And perhaps to cover their tracks as far as what they've been doing there.
Interesting idea.
But think about the guilt. The four Jedi who really the first two episodes centered around May hunting down four Jedi. Indara, played by Carrie-Anne Moss.
She's been convinced.
Dean Charles Chapman plays Torben. Junis Swotamo, who we know as Chewbacca in the Disney verse. He's been playing Chewbacca and several other Wookiees. He plays Kelnaka.
He's a professional Wookiee.
Yes. And then Lee Jung-jae plays Sol, and May is hunting these four in particular.
Who's also doing an excellent job, I think.
Yes, we'll talk about him in a moment. But May is hunting these four in particular because of seemingly whatever happened at the Citadel. So that for that reason alone, we know they did not show us the whole story, because the only way they feel guilty is if they somehow contributed to the atrocity that happens there. And Torben commits suicide.
Poison. Yeah, that's a really big effing deal.
And sustains a wound.
Right. Oh, I literally, that was one of the notes that I wrote down. I was just like, dang, 15 years did not treat him well, because he looks awful.
So whatever, and somebody else noted Endara, Carrie-Anne Moss. So she, at the time May kills her,
Yeah.
in episode 1 right out of the gate. Which,
yeah, so fast.
Geez. She has...
Oh, also, like, that's, like, such a Scream moment. That was the first thing that came to my mind. Like, do you remember when Scream came out, like, 500 years ago? And all the marketing material, literally every marketing thing, and I think all the commercials, like, showed Drew Barrymore being the star of that film.
Yeah.
And then she fucking gets murdered in the first scene. Everyone's like, oh my God! Spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen Scream.
Yeah, and Carrie-Anne Moss was as heavily featured as anyone in the promotional material.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, here we go. And we're going to have a fucking Matrix Star Wars situation. And then she's dead.
And granted, she's going to be an important part of the series as they reflect back on things. But
Sure. Because
but
you're
you'll note,
probably right. They are going to show this moment like in several different
But the point I
ways.
was making, she has a teardrop tattoo.
You're right.
But she has 2.
Yes.
But when we see her in episode 3, which is 16 years prior, at the
none.
Citadel, she has 1.
Oh, she has 1. Sorry. So that's interesting. And like,
do with that what you will.
Yeah, in like, I doubt that they're trying to draw connections between gang violence, but I know that teardrop tattoos, doesn't that mean like people that you killed or?
Yeah.
Like that?
I mean, I don't necessarily think of gang violence, but but why not? We're tackling every other social issue in this show, so why not?
Sure.
But yeah, just an interesting note there. So all of that to say, we're going to get another look at this scene in particular from a different perspective.
I think you're giving me more, you're bringing more comfort to my heart, because I was, that part did make me feel uncomfortable, and I was hoping that they were going to expand on it a little bit more, because I was like, wow, that was so abrupt, and it felt like, I was like, if they leave it here, it's going to make it, and it just makes that choice feel a little, not cheap, I don't know if this is a word, but just, it didn't feel like 100% motivated. But if she, like, being, because like she's on a razor's edge, she's just ready to be pushed,
Yes.
and if what you're saying is true, and not to say what's her name, Coral, thank you, pushed her over the edge and said, like, you have to do this, and if you don't do this, da-da-da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? Gives her some kind of an ultimatum or something. And also, she just went through this ascension ceremony,
Mhm.
and now potentially has like new given powers that she didn't have before, yeah.
I found myself very, very conflicted by episode 3, and perhaps that means it did its job.
Sure.
I really didn't like, and I'll explain why in detail, but I really didn't like the implications about the Jedi being
the way that
child abductor, like child snatchers.
It kind of felt like that, though. Yeah.
Well, more than that, like they flat out insinuated it. And mind you, this is, and it's important to make this distinction. It's from the perspective of this coven of witches. So whether that's truth or not, that's really in the eyes of the beholder, which I think is the whole point of the episode.
Right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's no secret that Leslie Headland has things to say about her view of the world, of maybe her lived-in experience.
Sure.
I could not help but recognize that perhaps she was using the Jedi in this instance as a means to explore decolonization, other things of that nature. And
maybe
I understand the metaphor, and
if that's what it is, yeah, I do. It that comes in.
It definitely had tinges of how the witches believe in, all is stronger than one, the kind of communal aspect. And then the Jedi come in and they're not welcome, and they take our children and they plunder our, so I was getting
about, like, concealing, don't feel.
I was getting yeah, I was getting that feeling that perhaps she was barking up the tree of decolonization and all that. And
I understand why you
I
would think that.
understand it. I'm not. I don't
Sure.
know.
You're not
I'm
sure
also.
if it fits yet.
I'm not sure if it fits, and I'm not sure if I need that exploration about the Jedi. And the reason I say that is because the sequel trilogy has already spent so much time telling us that the Jedi screwed up. Like, we know
Sure.
they're not perfect.
Sure. Well,
just-
and we have to
I-
understand that these are the Jedi. I mean, yes, it's the same group of, like, it's the same organization, but it is, 100 years ago or over
Yes,
100
yes.
years ago. So, like, if you look back at, like, the way America was 100 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I mean, we are those people, but we aren't those people anymore. Like,
Yes.
I feel like we've grown.
Always room for growth, and
Yeah, we know our roots, but, like, things are different.
And Yoda references, as things come to a head at the end of the Clone Wars, that the shroud of the dark side has fallen, and
Sure.
our ability to see has been diminished, and
the Clone Wars.
And the whole point of this show was to show the slow deterioration. I also, though, I just caution getting so cynical that...
You are so cynical, Dino. Oh my God.
No, I caution being so cynical with the presentation of the Jedi that we just grow to
hate them,
to resent them. Which,
no, I understand.
You know what I mean? It's a fine line.
They are. I completely know what you're getting at. It's because it's kind of almost the same. Well, not quite the same, but like why a lot of people ended up not liking the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. You know what I mean? Because it's like, he's the hero. He's not supposed to be like this. Like, you're making my vision of this hero like as this, like, washed up hermit, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand both sides, because I think that people are more complicated than that. I think that there are always two sides to the coin.
And to be clear, I'm much
more sides than two sides to a coin. Really, it's more of a dodecahedron, if you will.
No, and to be clear, I much prefer it be complicated than just good versus evil all the time, because that story's we've seen that story,
certainly. And I think we're going to see that too, like with all of these Jedi. There's probably like a few bad eggs. Maybe there's maybe generally speaking, the Jedi are like not all like this, and I don't know. I think it is going to be more complicated. And going even like you said when you talked about Qui-Gon Jinn, he was also a Jedi, but like didn't really his dogma didn't really fit in with like the general dogma of the Jedi.
And he and Anakin were kindred spirits in that way, and it really makes you yearn for an alternate universe where Qui-Gon got to train Anakin, and no fault of Obi-Wan's, but maybe Qui-Gon
could have done it. Maybe
Qui-Gon was the right master for him, but
but it happened the way it was supposed to.
That's right.
Otherwise, it would have been a terrible story.
But on speaking of coins, on the other side of this particular coin, you have this coven.
Yes.
We're seeing the Jedi. We're seeing this portrayal of the Jedi through their eyes. They are the narrator in this sense.
But it's interesting because, like, if what you're saying is right, I am curious if we're going to see another point of view again. Where
maybe of the Jedi's perspective.
Well, and that's the thing, because so what I was asking myself, because we got a couple of hints. They said that they're a coven of witches. Cool. At least what we know of witches so far in like Star Wars lore is that
Night Sisters.
The Night Sisters, they use sort of the spooky side of this force to, like, do their magic and like literally bring people back from the dead and spooky stuff. Necromancy. They were banned or exiled. And they didn't say from where, so that's interesting. Just like banned from the universe or anything. Assumedly, they're banned from anywhere that like is Republic.
Yep.
Covered by the Republic. I don't know. So if the Jedi are sort of like the police of the Republic, they're going around making sure that they're like, staying true to their exile. Of course, we don't know what they did in order to get exiled. So that's, question number 1 to me. Question number 2, is what the Jedi were doing there in the first place, because like, the witches said, they're like, hey, we're outside of the Republic's jurisdiction. So
yeah, and then Andara says, well, we have the right to test Force sensitive children.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
that's where you start to go,
hold on,
you have the right to test them.
As if like I have a like it's the law, so I can take your kid if I want to.
And that's where I go,
that feels a little
weird. But then on the opposite side of the coin, you have this coven who I need to be careful in my use of this word, because they're grooming these 2 girls. I don't mean sexually. So that's why I'm cautious, but it's the best word I can think of.
They're creating lesbians.
No, that's not what I mean. They've taken these 2 girls. They're the only children there,
right? So that's
they
another
treat
thing
that
too.
So we'll get into the much bigger implication.
There are so many questions. So many questions.
That in itself is terribly creepy and like, kind of awful. So
it should be.
So where am I supposed to sit here?
Right. It's a little weird, because that brings me to my other question about why the Jedi are there. You know what I mean? Like, they're outside of Republic jurisdiction. It seems like to me they came there because they either like felt something in the Force that like, this crazy strong dyad or whatever in the Force was created, and that they needed to go kind of explore what's going on. And then they saw the 2 children, and they're kind of like spying on them, which is weird. But like, if they're worried that what can become of this, like if this like really strong dyad is like at the helm, or they're like, running the show with these witches, that the witches could become too powerful, and and this is all dependent on what they were originally banned for, because if they did something really nasty, then I can understand why they might be nervous, like to have these like ultra powerful Jedi or Force wielding kids.
So you keep saying dyad.
I know, that's the first thing that came to my mind, and so that's the bit. I see them trying to potentially put pins and things and draw arrows.
And if you don't know what Daniel and I are referring to, just a quick rehash.
Maggie's excited.
Maggie's weighing in on the dyad.
Says, boof, boof, boof.
But in The Rise of Skywalker, episode 9, the concept is introduced of a Force dyad between Rey and Ben Solo.
As far as I know, it's the first time we had ever heard of such a thing.
Yes, it was thrown in quite literally at the 11th hour of the Skywalker saga, but
yeah, like
there it was. But yes, it's not hard to see that the twins played in their adult version. We haven't even said her name yet, Amanda Sternberg.
Yes.
Sternberg. Did I say Sternberg or Stenberg?
Oh shoot.
Stenberg. Excuse me, not Sternberg. Stenberg. Amanda Stenberg. Who plays Osha and May, but who's
also doing a fantastic job.
Oh yes, she's fantastic. By nature of them being twins, we're already kind of led to believe, Force sensitive twins. We go, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Not even just twins, like twins created by the Force.
So, but were they? So sorry, my brain is going a million miles an hour.
I know, same.
So
which is good. I think that's why the show, like, where the success of the show is going to happen is that it is causing us to ask these questions. I mean, like,
so perhaps the most controversial aspect of last night's episode was the Coven's view of their understanding of the Force, and this was actually really interesting to me. They talk about the thread and pulling the thread.
And you can almost even see her doing it.
Yeah, and she almost goes as far as to say there is no force. That's control that makes your destiny inevitable. You get to choose by pulling the thread. So that on its face, that's Christianity versus Islam versus Judaism versus Hinduism
Sure.
versus Buddhism. Like
Sure.
we all, I say all, speaking as, people of faith,
Mm-hmm.
we're all thinking about roughly the same thing, but we have
flavors of the same thing.
we have a different understanding of perhaps how it works. And I really do like that.
It's the Baskin Robbins of religion.
Yes, that people's understanding of the Force would naturally be different depending on where you are in the galaxy. So I had no qualms with that.
No, same. Also same.
Interestingly,
because we get the very in the video games too, we also get a very different view
Right.
of Force users, and it totally works in my opinion.
So then we come to understand, to your point, that these girls, having had no father, like one Anakin Skywalker,
which I see them also trying to potentially draw lines,
which has pissed people off because, like, is Anakin no longer special? But here,
no,
but here's where I think the difference is, and chime in if you disagree.
Please.
Where I think the difference between Anakin and these two girls is these witches found a way to do what Palpatine had long sought to do, and seemingly his master Plagueis, to create life from midi-chlorians.
Yeah.
But the assumption
assumedly
the assumption with the girls is that these witches created them. I think the assumption with Anakin is that the Force itself created Anakin as an answer to
a balance issue.
A balance issue.
Sure.
So these girls are really
like,
an experiment.
There was no like one person or people that were like pulling the thread, quote unquote, or
Right.
Like that. I mean, unless they're trying to say that potentially, Anakin's mom was, a former witch or something.
Which, I mean, honestly, if they
try to put
that was ever
together,
retconned, I'd quit. I was like, I can't do this.
Like, no.
I followed you. I can't do this. No, but I think that's the distinction, though.
But yeah, I think you're right, and I think that they're just trying to they're trying to add credence to the fact that that it can be done. It's it's potentially taking some of the mystery away, like saying that there is there are other folks that can somehow do that. Of course, we still don't know, and I'm curious whether or not they're actually going to dive deeper into how it worked. So there was two sentences said, and yeah. So what's her name? Oh shoot, Coral said I carried them, and Anasea said I created them. So, and her being like the leader and the mother, if you will, of this coven, she's like the most powerful witch of them. She's which we don't really 100% understand why that is. I think, at least to my not to my understanding, I don't know how she gets to be picked to be the most powerful, if that's just because she's her midi-chlorian count's real high and she or she's just super respected and worked her way up or whatever it is, birthright. But yeah, so she is really powerful by pulling these threads, and she I guess assumedly there are eggs inside of Coral, and she manipulated them with the Force to make them be viable babies? ? I don't know. It's quite. I don't want. I hope they don't explain it too hard.
I don't know how it's done.
Explanation.
But really, the implication here is that Anasea achieved what Palpatine says Darth Plagueis had figured out. The very thing he had figured out how to do.
Right. And so wow, I didn't even think about this until now, but how we've all been kind of a lot of people have been theorizing about this, so I'm not the first one, but before the show came out, they're all like, ooh, who's this Sith gonna be, or is it even gonna be a Sith?
Yeah.
I mean, you see red lightsaber, you think Sith.
And they even in most of the like I remember Daphne Keane, one of the actors, had said during the press tour that this was about a story from a Sith perspective. I mean,
Totally.
they threw the word around.
I think that is being like pretty much confirmed that we're dealing with Sith. So, but the question was like, like, okay, well, who's alive during this time, like that we know of? Because there weren't like a lot of Sith running around that like they were.
No, especially as far as
destroyed.
The Jedi were concerned, they thought they were extinct.
Right.
Coyote Mundi says they've been extinct for a millennia.
So, like the one name that keeps coming around is, like you said, Darth Plagueis. So, is he around at this time, and is he doing what you're saying, looking for people that know how to create life from the Force, and that's why he's so interested in May, because May is now like the head of this coven, because allegedly her mom is now dead, even though we didn't really like see her 100% die. We just saw her body lying on the floor. I know I'm weird about that. I know he's like, if there's no body, no death, but we did see her body, but we didn't see her like breathe her last breath. So I'm like,
well, according to the again, this is old canon, meaning just pre-Disney. There was a Darth Plagueis novel that was.
Oh, is that right?
James Luceno. He had written a bunch of actually very good Star Wars books.
So this is now Star Wars Legends.
Some of those ideas have been reintroduced, but in the Darth Plagueis novel, I believe it takes place not long before the Phantom Menace. So when Palpatine overpowers him, and all of that takes place roughly around the time of Phantom Menace. So we're still some 90 to 100 years away from that. However, because that was Legends, the potential exists where we could start to see
really fucking old.
We could start to see Plagueis's plan set in motion here,
because it's never really mentioned as to what race Plagueis was.
Well, in the book,
it does.
He's a Mun, which are the tall, these really tall, like think of the
elongated heads.
Do you remember Attack of the Clones? They show him. They have all the separatist leaders.
Yeah.
And then you had the guy from the banking clan who has the really skinny, tall
super
head.
Skinny head.
The banking clan will give you.
yes.
I forget his name.
Like, who is this guy? Yeah.
But that he's a Mun.
Okay, got it.
I believe.
And so, I don't know if that. I mean, I'm assumingly we probably like at this point know. At least somebody has probably put on Wikipedia like how long Muns can live for. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to go with in this version. But if even Darth Plagueis is going to be around.
Well, and we spent all of the months and years leading up to the sequel trilogy speculating that Darth Plagueis was going to be the.
Yeah, I know.
Snoke is Darth Plagueis.
Yeah, right. I know. We joke around in the Marvel shows that we always talk about Mephisto. Yeah, he's
Ultron,
the Mephisto of the Star Wars universe. But here's the other option. Well, one of the other options is that this could be like Darth Plagueis's like future master. Because assumingly Darth Plagueis he wasn't probably like, the first Sith in a long time. Like I'm just gonna pick this lightsaber up and I'm gonna be a Sith Lord. Like he probably learned it from another Sith.
Okay, so he did, and here's some more legends for you.
Okay,
so
great.
Darth Plagueis' master, again in Legends, this is pre-Disney, so we don't take this as canon. Sith Lord named Darth Tenebris.
Oh, right. Okay, I have heard about this.
Who was a Biff. And the Bith race, if you don't know these names off the top of your head.
Biff with TH or Biff?
Like BITH, Biff.
Okay. Not Biff from
Biff.
like...
It's BIS with a lisp. Biff.
Yeah. Okay.
No, he's a Biff, and you'll recognize this race from Star Wars. That is the same race as the Cantina Band from A New Hope.
Oh, okay,
Those are Biff.
Got it.
So Darth Tenebris was Darth Plagueis' master, and all of these guys existed in secret, and Palpatine's really the first. Sidious is really the first one the Jedi officially encounters. So it does does leave the question on what does an encounter with what seems to be a Sith Lord, where does that leave us?
But okay, so this is actually kind of making it's kind of percolating it's making my nipples a little hard. It's making my nerd nipples hard. If that is the case, maybe we're heading towards a reason why that legend sort of is percolating in, like, you know, he doesn't know how, but he knows that it is possible because sometime in the past there was, you know, people that were able to do what he says, like create life with the Force. So that perhaps we are seeing the birth of that legend here.
Yeah.
That's kind of my my best guess so far. So whether or not this Sith that we're gonna find is gonna actually be Darth Plagueis or Darth Plagueis's master, future master, or somebody completely different. Yeah, I'm interested to see. It makes it sound like that's going to be where they're going potentially.
It could be. Well, and if you know, with a season 2, I mean, you're not going to cover 100 years, but
probably not.
You could, by the end of 2 seasons, set up, you know, the scheme. Yeah. So as far as the witches go, like, just to tie back into what we were talking about, the looking at 2 different perspectives, and neither look particularly good. Like, I just kind of left that episode going, ugh.
Yeah.
The Jedi abduct children, and the witches create them and use them.
Let's ask another question. Why are they creating these kids? Like, is
and they call it the mirror. They call it a miracle, and they're the only kids there.
Right. So it makes me feel like they're.
I mean, they are lesbians after all, so they're not naturally conceiving them.
But so I mean, yeah, that would be very much a miracle. So I think that
although there is a sect on the internet that believes
that
the implication here was that the lesbians were having children, that they were able to have children. It's like you guys are just looking to be angry at this point.
Guys. Hey. So I something tells me because they were banned, you know, they are now, and so it feels like it's been a little more recent. Well, I don't know. It depends because like wherever they're at right now feels like pretty heavily fortified. And,
they've been here a while.
Maybe they have been there for a long time. It's either they came upon this place and it was, you know, already built up, or they've been there for a long effing time.
Right.
Yeah, so I am curious to know if maybe it's because they're dwindling in numbers, you know, and they we need to figure out how to make more of us. But yeah, there are clear. I didn't see any other men there that weren't Jedi, right?
Nope. That was all women.
Of course, I know that's very you know, not very PC of me gendering everyone like that, but
I understand.
But I think it was sort of implied that all
you're in a safe space here. Yes,
yeah.
Yes, they were women.
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. Well, you know what's also interesting to me too is that Korra, her species, at least in the Night Sisters' time,
the Dathomiri.
Yeah, the Dathomiri, right? Aren't
is
they
Korra a Dathomiri?
Well, she's the same. She's got the spikes on her head. She's basically the same as Darth Maul, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, they both have.
But am I crazy to the?
She's Zabrak. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're not wrong. Maul's a Zabrak.
Okay, so let's go a little further. So the Zabrak that we know of are living on Dathomir with the Night Sisters.
Yep.
And the Night Sisters don't have spikes on their heads, right? Am I crazy?
No, they don't.
Right, because they are not Zabrak.
Correct.
And the Zabrak are all dudes.
No.
Okay, so
just
that's where I'm confused.
No. Is that
so? There are female Zabraks. Then.
Yes, there are.
Great. That makes more sense.
Yes.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
So yeah, I think, but I don't know if it was ever really talked about in the cartoons because it's kind of a little bit of a, I mean, they were getting into some pretty like heavy stuff in the cartoons, but they never really talked about procreation on the cartoons that I remember.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was really discussed as to like how the Night Sisters were like, they would go out into the world and find some, some guy and then come back and like make more Night Sisters, I guess. Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe they'll get into this show. We'll find out how that like used to happen, I guess.
So maybe pivoting away from the very heavy and serious topic we just engaged in.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep. Like there's a lot to pick apart because it's a pretty wild. It's one of the wilder things that's come out of.
It does have people in a tizzy, and some people who had already decided they were going to hate the show have used this as confirmation as why.
For certain, yes.
And then I think there's a lot of people like you and I who are like, I'm very curious, I'm very confused, and
yes, and please,
concerned.
Dear God, land the plane. Yes, please, dear God, land the plane.
These are big ideas.
Yeah, these are real big ideas. And I'm infinitely intrigued by it though, because
and I think this is what you want.
Really cool.
I think what you want out of Star Wars is the tackling of big ideas, but please, if you're going to do it, as you just said, land the plane. And they have not broken lore yet. There's been a lot of insinuations that this episode killed Star Wars, Star Wars lore. And I was like, no, we are walking a tightrope. But nothing has been killed.
No, absolutely.
But what do you think of the? No, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I just think that and I know we put a lot of our faith in Dave
false
Filoni.
Gods.
Yeah, false god, Dave Filoni. But I mean, I there are too many people that work for this company that like passionately love Star Wars and just would not.
That's exactly what a shill would say. A paid shill.
I am a Star Wars shill, you're right.
They pay us so much money to do this podcast.
They sure do.
And give us all the access we get.
Filthy rich. I am sitting on a
you corporate
chair.
shill, Daniel.
This golden chair is a lot less comfortable than it looks.
What do you think? What about the fight choreography?
Fight choreography.
It has a very distinct samurai feel to it. So do you enjoy this take on Jedi skill?
No, I do, and I think that it shows a passage of time, not a passage of time. It shows that we are in a earlier age.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a time when we've been told, in the well, I guess it's not really a crawl because it didn't.
Yeah, but we got a little intro.
You got a little intro, with the words.
Bulletin.
And it basically says that we are in a time where the Jedi are like peak. They are at their head of the game, and they don't need to fight. They're there to.
They are defensive, strictly defensive.
Strictly defensive, keep the peace. So it would make all the sense to me that their fight style would reflect that, and I think that they did that very well because
particularly with Endara and Soul. How
just
adept
like
they are at just avoiding confrontation and using leverage, and
I'm obsessed with that because it just like it like in samurai movies too, it just shows such a not even a cockiness, but like it's just like, oh my gosh, they're so good at what they do, like. And like they not only just like having the time to avoid all of these attacks, but also at the same time using that time to analyze their opponent. You know what I mean? And I love the idea too, because this also goes into like fight culture, that like when you get so good at it, you can start to recognize like
Yes.
different, not even just different styles, but like you're like I know exactly who taught you, because like
Yes,
only
right.
one person fights like that.
Right.
Like I feel like you probably could honestly, like I because like, you know, Jackie Chan like fights a very certain way. I feel like if somebody was taught by Jackie Chan, you probably might be able to pick it out. You'd be like,
Right.
oh yeah, you're a Jackie Chan fighter. But yeah, in that sense, I really, really enjoyed like the, you know, that like her just like judging the whole time and be like, who
Yeah.
taught you, you know, like, because it's just like there's a mystery involved in this.
Well,
like,
and
immediately we're sucked into the mystery of it.
And in that fight, I saw a lot of criticism online that, oh great, now throwing knives are more powerful than lightsabers. And it's like, oh my god. Well, and
Come on.
the criticism being this, that we've seen in recent years lightsabers penetrate people and not end up killing them.
Right. Well, not to mention, like, you know, the Order 66. I mean, some of these Jedi were just shot at point blank range. You know what I mean? Like,
well, but the point being here, I think you just kind of missed the point. Yes, the lightsaber is objectively a more powerful weapon than a throwing knife, but the whole point of that scene is to illustrate the Jedi's biggest weakness is compassion.
right.
And I go back to like what the Grand Inquisitor said during Kenobi: their compassion leaves a trail. It's it's their
Yes,
weakness.
Totally.
So the only way May can beat Endara is by
terrorizing people.
Yeah, terrorizing people. And
right. And that's what the
Endara takes
did.
and Endara takes a throwing knife to the heart. Like, she's not getting up from that. Like, it's
probably not.
I think we're reading too much into. There's just, I don't know. I'm getting back on like the fandom menace a little bit. Like, how could a Jedi be killed with a stupid little throwing knife? Because the Jedi cared about somebody else. That's the answer.
Well, and it's interesting too. You know, we still don't know the whole story yet, because there's quite a mystery to unfold. But you know, we did get one pretty giant hint from Torben when he fucking downed a vial of poison willingly. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big deal to me.
Yes.
So when oh god, Moss. Oh god, what's her character's name? Endara, thank you. When Endara like finds out who it is, then she starts putting two and two together, and perhaps there's like some guilt percolating. Like, and that's what I'm not sure about, is whether or not she actually does feel guilt, or if she because I mean, obviously Torben did, like, assumed some kind of like guilt. But whether or not Endara also shares that vibe, and like doesn't necessarily die willingly, but like sort of accepts it as it's happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it does look like it was on accident. Like,
yeah, no, I don't think she wanted to die, but
no,
it wasn't outside of the range of outcomes. And
yeah,
I think that's, you make a very good point, is all four of them know something is
not right.
Not that they deserve it, but
like, oof, that was
something happened, and we'll see how the other two, as time goes on, I think we'll see how the other two.
Well, this is great, actually.
With that, but
I love that we're doing this backwards. This is like what's that movie called? Oh God, I can't remember. Where they tell the story out of order. That doesn't matter.
Could be
Memento.
Oh yeah,
yeah, right. Seemingly, I don't know if we were I think we're sort of led to believe that Greenhead, what's her name?
Vernestra Rowe.
Thank you, Vernestra Rowe, which is a character in the books.
Yes, the High Republic. She was introduced in the High Republic books, which debuted in during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I am still reading. I still haven't finished it yet. Because reading is hard for people with ADD. But yeah, very cool to see a book character make its way into this character has a lightsaber who like she has made it into like a whip.
A lightsaber whip, a
lightsaber whip. So we're gonna see some of that coming up pretty soon. But also interesting to see her. They kind of made it a point to show that she's a little more concerned about like the politics of like how things look, which that doesn't really sit well with me either. And that's kind of, I mean, in a good way, I think in like a, in a good storytelling way. So they are showing some interesting cracks in the Jedi dogma. And I think that's part of it. And I'm not sure whether or not she's going to be, because she is a hero in the books. I haven't finished it, but I can't imagine that they're going to turn her into a villain all of a sudden. But
no, but perhaps a contributor to the rot inside that leads to them losing their sight. And
that's kind of what I was getting to. Is it feels like that she might also share some guilt in this. Like maybe she knows some stuff.
There's speaking of knowing stuff, there is we've kind of theorized a little bit about who this masked Sith is. There was a popular theory after he was introduced that Kimir, the guy who presents creates the poison that kills.
Who like looks a lot like what's his face? The canceled actor that was in DC movies, Flash.
Ezra Miller?
Kind of a little Ezra Miller.
A little bit
vibes.
But Kimir, he provides the poison to May to kill Tormund.
Are people saying that that's him?
Well, because he's so duplicitous, and he also recognizes that when Osha walks in pretending to be May, like, remember he says, "You look just like her."
Yeah, that's weird.
And the assumption here is that they both serve the master. He also works under this person. But what if he is in fact the master?
That's interesting.
Maybe.
I would be. I don't know how I'd feel about that. I feel like it would be kind of like okay, but it would be. I don't know. I feel like if they revealed that now, I'd be a little indifferent to that. But
I don't know if that's. We just have to be careful here when we talk about masked characters in Star Wars, because I mean, most recently, like Ahsoka, when we're going, who's that? Right. Who's that Inquisitor? It's Ezra. The Inquisitor is Ezra.
Didn't fucking matter.
Sometimes it just doesn't matter.
It's just a masked, angry person.
So I don't know. I'm not sure I'm anticipating a big reveal.
Sure. Yeah, and obviously all of these characters, and we've been also confirmed that Yoda will not be appearing in this show.
Even though he, at this point,
does exist.
A high-ranking member of the Jedi Order
person.
And he would be, 700-something years old at this point, so...
Yeah,
so he's still way up there, but
I think it's it's for the best that we aren't like relying on any of those legendary characters.
I do think it helps this story spread its wings without the weight of trying to
connect
everything. It very obviously connects, but we don't need to have it spelled out
totally
all the time. I think that takes up bandwidth that doesn't need to use.
And it also kind of like it like lets me sit back and relax and watch more like with a less critical eye, I think. it's not the same, but it's reminding me of like when you go to see a show. I don't know if you're like this or not, because for those of you that haven't watched our show or listened to our podcast, we're performers. We do musical theater, and when I go to see musicals, I don't do this a lot, as much as I used to. But like if it was a new musical that I've never seen before, I would be like leaning forward, like watching the stage, like scanning every ensemble, every track in the show, being like, okay, what could I do in this? Do you know what I mean? Like which part could I be?
Yes.
And but like there are certain times where like a show is just like so out of my, like I remember seeing the first out of town tryout of Newsies, and I like the first number, they like come out and it's a fine life, and I was just immediately like, I there's no way in hell. So I just sat back and I relaxed and I enjoyed the show.
That was me. Oddly enough, that was me with Newsies.
Yeah. So I mean,
not a chance.
It's something so nice to be able to just sit back and enjoy a show and not have to think about like all of that. So I said
I've been watching it with Veronica, and we've been going through Star Wars these last few months. And I mean Star Wars, like all of it. And
sure.
But this was the first time we sat down, and I was like, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I don't know. Don't ask me questions because I don't know.
I don't know.
I have guesses.
Although I do feel like we've made some pretty interesting guesses so
sure,
far.
but at the end of the day, until they're answered, it's like I don't know.
They're merely conjecture. And of course it's like, we've learned on this show, and we're still learning to am I boring you?
Yes. I just let out a giant yawn as Daniel was trying to make a point.
Are you done?
Shut up.
Oh my god, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh no, it's gone. What was I gonna say?
I was just talking about how your guess is as good as mine.
I know what it was.
Yep.
I know what it was. It was about curbing our expectations.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it just learning to sit back and relax and enjoy more Star Wars content. You know what I mean? And yes, it is possible that it might be a piece of poop, but so far it's not a piece of poop. It's very enjoyable. Yeah.
Please land the plane. Please God land the plane.
Please God land the plane. I'm looking through my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep. Sure. Yep. Yep. I wrote lesbians in space. Wrote that down.
No, I joke, but I really do wish I could get Alyssa's on air take of particularly episode 3. So I just want to hear her perspective on.
I mean, I will say,
what
like,
we talked about.
Just being a queer person, it was very refreshing, and like it was so. It didn't feel like forced or pushed. I mean, without lack of a better term, it just like they just happened to be, lesbians, and it's like, it was great. I think it's I think it's going to be really nice for
I hear that, and that, to be clear, that's not actually why I want Alyssa's opinion. I want her opinion because I've seen so many varied opinions on did episode 3 kind of undo our understanding of everything, and you and I clearly don't think so, but we haven't asked Alyssa yet, but
she sometimes has some very varying opinions.
Yeah.
She might come in and be like, "It was the worst."
No, my favorite Alyssa opinion, I think, was The Mandalorian season 3, and the thing she hated most about Mandalorian season 3 was the gauntlet clapping. You remember that? And I could not,
with a passion,
I could not get over how much she
clank, 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 clank.
Hated that. It made me laugh so much.
In her defense, I get it, because it did feel kind of like all the stunt performers just did it on accident, and they're like, but keep that. That's fun.
But Veronica and I just finished Mandalorian season 3 2 nights ago, and and so the gauntlet clapping is fresh in my mind. Look, I thought nothing of it.
No, same.
So it just made me so happy that out of everything in Star Wars, I've never heard Alyssa hate something as much as she hates that.
No,
so.
in the acting world, that is called endowing your prop. That is
Yes.
that is good, like using your surroundings.
Yes, the directors absolutely said, "Come up." I don't know. Come up with a celebratory gesture.
Jeez Louise.
But,
Now I'm trying to think of all the different episodes. Were there any other like elements that we like kind of missed? I'm sure we probably like didn't talk about certain things, but the big takeaways for sure for me, lesbians in space. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh my God, they're creating people with the Force. So
how, we don't know.
Potentially drawing threads to how Anakin was conceived, maybe potentially. Also drawing threads as to what dyads are, and that like it wasn't just a one-time thing. Like this, they're trying to create potentially a precedent for it in the Star Wars universe.
Right.
Like this wasn't the first time, the first go around. Yeah, I think those are the major takeaways.
Yes.
And at least for me. And it's enjoyable.
And I'm with you. I think my other big takeaway that we talked about at great length was varying opinions on the Jedi and the perspective from which we see them, and what their role was in whatever the hell happened in that Citadel.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Am I crazy to not to drag us back into a deeper conversation, but when we were getting sort of like when they were trying to sell us on the show, didn't they sort of like, and maybe this didn't even come from any of the crew members or cast members, but it might have just come from a fan, speculation, but didn't they say that it was like from like the Sith's point of view?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, okay.
That was kind of early on, but yes, that was, I believe it was Daphne Keane again, who we haven't really talked about her, but she plays Soul's apprentice, right? No, I'm sorry. No, yeah, she plays Soul's apprentice.
Right.
What's her name? Jackie.
Right. Oh, which I also didn't mention.
We haven't talked about her at all.
Yeah, or the other guy. Shoot, what's his name?
Oh yes, Yord.
Michael. Isn't Michael the actor's name? Michael.
Charlie Barnett.
So close.
Yord Fandar.
Yes. Who is a high school friend of one of our buddies, Bruce Merkel. He was really excited to see him be a Jedi. And he's doing fantastic too. I remember him I'm sure it didn't do nothing for you, but like when he took off his shirt, I was like, oh, woo!
I felt absolutely.
We don't get very many nipples in Star Wars, and
no, the last one we saw was live action. I believe was Kylo Ren. Yeah,
at which those were some great nips.
If you say so, I'll take your word for it.
Chest. But this is a great addition to the repertoire.
But yes, Jackie, who is Soul's apprentice, who I really like. I hope we get to see.
Anakin's still my favorite, just to say.
Okay, fine. But I want to see more of Jackie. I think Daphne Keane, who played Wolverine's clone.
Nipples, by the way.
Oh my God, that's not.
We definitely don't want to see her nipples, please.
Oh my God. No. Dear God. No, I want to see
we just
more
said
of her
those thoughts
character.
Way too close together. I'm sorry.
I know, I did.
We wanted to make sure that everybody was aware.
I would like to see more of her character. Let's just end it there before you get me into trouble with the authorities.
The police have arrived at your door.
I mean,
we haven't even put this on the internet, and people are still. Oh my God!
That girl is 19 years old. You know, I was not.
Is she actually 19 years old?
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely not that.
No, she's a terrific actor, and
she's great.
I kind of want to see more of the dynamic with her and Osha, being both being in Soul's orbit and
am I right by Osha's supposed to be, because it was 15 years later and she was what, like 7 or something like that at that point? And so like she's supposed to be like in her early 20s, or she's
early mid 20s.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That tracks.
Sure.
Well, that's the first 3 episodes of The Acolyte.
That's it. The Acolyte.
A lot happening, but I look forward to seeing where this one goes.
Really quick before we go, and I'm oftentimes I do agree with this, but this time I'm really don't agree with the reviews. On IMDb, these episodes, they've just gotten worse and worse. The first one was 5.9 stars. The second one was 5.7 stars. The third one was 3.9
Okay, but
stars.
the thing you have to remember about IMDb reviews, though, it's completely user-generated, I believe.
Yes.
So they got review bombed, as
Easily.
did Rotten Tomatoes, which now has given this an audience score of 22.
Oh my god! I was at like 40 something last.
While it's at 22, while the critic score, and also critics are not the end all be all either.
Yeah,
I'm illustrating the chasm.
It's a giant chasm.
It's like, guys, it's somewhere very much in the middle.
Yeah, isn't the critics at like 93%?
I think it was down to it's somewhere in the upper 80s, lower 90s.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it like smack dab in the middle of 20 to 90%.
No,
but
closer to the 80s than the 20s.
Yeah.
But I would also just use this as a lesson, and I've really started to do this really over the last year, maybe even longer. I just don't put steak in the reviews anymore.
I love steak, though.
I do love steak, but I don't put it in reviews. Make up your own mind. It's so much better to go into these shows without the discourse attached to it, especially nowadays.
Totally. And also just like what you're like, don't be a gatekeeper. Don't decide what you believe Star Wars should be. You know what I mean? Like, let them tell their own story,
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, we've said this a million times. Nobody's forcing anybody to like the Acolyte or anything else. It's like Star Wars at this point is kind of choose what you like, and not everything is going to be for everyone, and that's all right.
That's life.
That's life.
That's what life is.
On that note, this booth is 180 degrees.
Get me out of here.
I am losing water by the gallon.
Oh, God.
But
wasn't this fun?
This was so much fun, and I hope we get to do it again with Alyssa in tow. Yes. But until then, this is Inside the Tauntaun, a podcast in the multiverse of fandom. I'm Dino Nicandros.
And I'm Daniel Dawson.
May the Force be with you always.
See ya!
Inside the Tauntaun podcast, please like and subscribe.